People versus O.J. Simpson.
Dun dun.
Because we have 2 episodes to talk about, and even one is enough to talk about like all day. I seriously was raving about it.
It's so
at
good.
Work all day
John
today.
Travolta's so good, and so Courtney B. Vance. I don't know if he's getting enough credit as playing Cochran.
He is great. Like that opening speech in the most recent episode was so good because it was so perfect that character.
Even his pump up speech to OJ was like,
that was
the
scene.
Yeah,
it made me hate him more and love him more at the same time. It was so good.
You're just you get the you can't help but say you're very smart. You're very talented at what you do. I just only pray if I'm ever in trouble, you're my lawyer, and that I'm not going up against you, because that won't end well for me if we're not on the same side.
Because he's got the ruthless attitude and, like, the credibility to, like, naysay to anybody.
So, Courtney Vance is killing it.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Well, so the 2 episodes actually fit very well together, too. I mean, they're doing a fucking phenomenal job. Like, I mean, I know all of it has already happened. There's only so much fudging you can do with history.
It's but the Mad Men effect.
It's the timeline, though, the way that they're putting it together. I guess a lot like Mad Men, too, where these episodes are like perfect little puzzle pieces all together.
They're like microcosms of these bits of history. Like it's like we're actually getting to analyze really up close under a microscope in a way. Even though it's fictionalized, we understand it's fictionalized, but this is giving us like that like inside a view almost of what it was like as opposed to how we perceived it's like just from, casual references that we've absorbed through like cultural osmosis in a way. Over time, it's like, this is like, no, we're going to actually like make a story inside this so you can like really get into what all of this was happening. And that's what we got in Mad Men, and that's totally what we're getting from this show. And the story is as fascinating as we always remembered it was, but becomes even more disturbing and more emotional and more affecting.
Well, Vanity Fair has been doing fact check on every episode, so you can go to the Vanity Fair website and see which facts are true. And I mean, I would say per episode they get 4 out of 5, if not 5 out of 5, all right. Anyway, it was that fucked up. So the episodes that we're going to be talking about are Dream Teen,
and 100% Innocent.
Oh my god!
Like oh my god!
No, 100% Not Guilty. And Dream Team.
It was so...
and both revolve around Bob Shapiro and Johnny Cochran heavily. I did love that. I totally forgot that Sean Chapman Hawley was one of the assistants to Cochran. And she is better known for being Lindsay Lohan's lawyer, at least to me.
Oh, really?
Which is why I was just like,
this
is Sean Chapman. And the woman who's playing her looks a lot like Sean Chapman does. And now Sean Chapman Hawley. And I was like, oh God, you're Lindsay's lawyer. Oh, you do the Lord's work.
You keep her off the streets, please.
Good job. But anyway, it was just, it's small things, it's small details like that. Like I recently discovered a podcast, forget who's doing it, but they're talking with Jeffrey Toobin, the author.
Of the book, yeah.
Yes. And so in Dream Team, this is when we get told that like Bob Shapiro essentially starts manipulating the media in his favor, and one of his first things that he does is pull aside a reporter from the New Yorker that has come to like try and find a story, and that's supposed to be Jeffrey Toobin.
Yes.
And it was his very first feature-length article. He'd never done any research.
And it was totally a different kind of article that he'd gone there to do. Then he's like, well, screw this. This is my story now.
He had been doing, I believe, like, just, like, a word about town, like, things that are just, like, socialite events in New York and shit. Like, not anything remotely close to investigative journalism. And then he was then given a spot in, like, the author's row because people that wrote books came in to just observe the whole trial. Like, that's just where they sat in the back. It's like a fucking zoo. Like, that really ties into, in this most recent episode, when they do jury selection.
That was an intense endeavor.
I mean, I don't doubt that it was that packed in that courtroom. Everybody wanted to be on that jury.
But it's like, again, they even mentioned, like, how stupid people were in that moment. Because it's like, do you think these people realize that, like, they're standing here to, like, give up 6 months of their life to this?
Mm-hmm.
Like...
Sequestered, I believe, is what someone... I think it's Carl, the other assistant next to Sean.
It's like, you're gonna be gone for 6 months from your life. Like, you won't be able to go to your job. You won't be able to watch TV. You won't be able to read the newspaper or the magazines. Like...
It's like being on The Bachelor without any of the booze.
It was just, like... Nobody thinks of those things when they want to be on a jury for a famous trial. But Dream Team, I love it. Sort of like we're also seeing the downward slide of Robert Shapiro.
Grasping at straws.
It's
Is putting it
so
lightly.
uncomfortable to like
Oof.
watch this descent. It's so brilliant because, and seriously, John Travolta, I don't think I've ever liked him as much as an actor.
No.
Since like Saturday Night Fever, maybe.
I'd give you that. I can't think of anything else that I've like loved.
Like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, he was fine.
But it wasn't really him that made that movie great. It was just the fact that he was in it. It's like, oh, it's John Travolta.
Yeah,
Not like
he
your performance was so good.
It's not like he had any like memorable lines.
He had that
Do they
dance.
speak English
'cause he
in
got
what
to dance
is not
again.
his? Oh yeah, that is true. Oh wait, no, he does get to. I guess he gets to hang out with Uma Thurman and they do that dance. It was just the dance, I guess. But anyway, I don't think I've ever really liked him in anything the way that I have here. He's just, especially after I would say a good 10 years of shitty movies, like Old Dogs or Wild Hogs,
Oh,
or one of those. He's in one of those biker old dude biker
God,
movies.
didn't even watch it.
And then that weird, I want to call it Battlestar Galactica, but that's not what it's called. It's that Scientology movie where he has cornrows.
Oh God, no! It was was it After Earth or
Something like that.
he's like stupid humans, and I'm like that was his big L. Ron Hubbard opus movie, and it
Yeah.
was a complete big fat flop. Battlefield Earth.
Ah! Perfect, thank you.
That's it.
Na na na
True
na.
horror. But in this
True
episode,
horror indeed.
it truly was. I do not shit you at all. But Dream Team, it's like where you first see like all those big name lawyers, like one after another, starts getting added onto this team. So it was like F. Lee Bailey, who's played by Nathan Lane.
I love it. It's great.
He's so good in it too. I feel like all these actors are like, yeah, I get to get like a really good serious role that's still fun and gives me a chance to have fun.
And in this most recent episode, he's one shady bitch.
Oh my God, he is so good. I'm like,
And then watching John Travolta watch him be like, don't fucking say it.
oh yeah. Even though people will say that he's lost his head, he doesn't not a trial lawyer, and he's
It
this
was
and that.
so funny.
And he's like, then why did you fucking say it?
Oh, it was
Fuck!
so
I'm like,
funny.
oh, I love it. It's so refreshing. It's one of the few shows where I actually feel like it actually feels refreshing to have all the cuss words in it
Yeah, they got to say fuck. It was awesome.
and shit, and it just felt like
I think it was that show, or like the other night, I was like, I just watched a show the other day where someone said motherfucker and it wasn't bleeped, and it was amazing.
I was like, oh, I forget that we're in this time when it's like you're an adult. And this program for adults can speak like adults.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I don't mean that, like, saying fuck is an adult thing to do necessarily by itself. Just that it's something that we assume only an adult can consume from their media in a way that we don't want our children to. So it's rather nice to hear. But, the construction of the Dream Team starts with, them bringing F. Lee Bailey on. And then, from there, he recommends bringing Alan Dershowitz on.
Oh, right.
So it's like, oh my God, and forgot the actor's name playing Alan Dershowitz. He's also a very well-known, like, character actor. But he's playing Alan Dershowitz to perfection as just, like, a slime ball. He's a slime ball lawyer. He just, like, he uses his intellect wherever the money will pay him the most for it.
It's, shit. Charlotte's husband from Sex and the City.
Is that her husband?
Yes.
That is her husband.
I cannot remember his name right now, but
You are so right. That's
Golden
totally
Black.
him.
yeah. It's
But, like,
on the tip of my tongue. It's not Larry. What the
I don't remember. I just like how he's
Harry!
Harry Goldenblatt.
Yeah, something like that.
Whatever it is, he is nailing Alan Dershowitz as well.
He just looks totally different with hair.
And thinner.
Yeah, he is thinner.
He's a lot thinner than he was on Sex and the City.
That is true.
And
But I would recognize that mug
maybe
anywhere.
it made the ability to vanish inside the Alan Dershowitz persona
I was going to say,
a
when
little
you're a
easier
character
for us.
actor, you kind of have to always change it up. That's part of your shtick.
It is working for me, and I just love this. Like, because I don't know how people feel about Alan Dershowitz now, but I don't think a lot of people who are younger actually remember what a famous lawyer he was at the time. And like F. Lee Bailey was famous because I think he represented the Boston Strangler, which he brings up in this
And
last
Patty
episode.
Hearst.
And Patty Hearst, and on that line, he's like, when Robert Shapiro was like, "You're going to do this pro bono," and he's like, "Yeah, you'll get all this fame from it, and you'll get back in the game."
You'll dine out for the rest of your life.
He's like, "Yeah, but Patty Hearst paid, so I can still do it for money and get that. So fuck you and your stupid '90s ties."
So he went and had a shady interview.
It was
with
so
Larry
good.
David. Larry David. Oh my God, Larry King.
Larry King.
Even though that would have been funny if they got Larry David to play Larry King on the show.
That would have been fun, but why not get Larry King while he's still alive?
Yeah, no, he said he was down to do it. I guess on the podcast I was listening to, Tubin was talking about how Ryan Murphy or someone approached him and was like, do you think Larry King would do it? He's like, yeah, he's not doing anything right now. He's like,
He
of course he
totally
didn't. He's retired. I
Right?
think he's got a podcast, but other than that, you know, he's just chilling with all his money, and I assume dogs. I feel like he has a lot of dogs, like a lot of small ones.
Probably does. I don't know how to segue that into the plot again, but but the little dogs is all I'm seeing is like little dogs running around. But in Dream Team, we also have the moment where Marcia Clark reveals that they have the evidence of the glove and the blood trail. Like, that's what she's giving to the media at the same time that Shapiro's building his Dream Team.
Well, and also planting a story about how it's all about race and how Mark Furman, this is how all the Mark Furman stuff happens. And all I can ever think about is that Dave Chappelle skit where he is on the stand to testify or like try and be a juror to be on like famous court trial jury boxes.
I remember
and he
that.
talks about OJ. He's like, Mark Furman, Fuhrer, German. I bet that dude said the N-word. I bet he says the N-word all the time. And, like, the way that he, like, spins it is so funny. It's all I ever think about on this show. When they bring up Mark Furman, all I hear is, Fuhrer, German.
That's understandable.
And hearing Jeffrey Toobin talk about how he uncovered this, like, really weird civil case that he had filed with the LAPD about how the LAPD had made him so racist that he needed to like cash in his pension ASAP so that he didn't have to be a police officer anymore. And they were like, nope, suit up, go back to work, you're a puss. Like,
it was such a bizarre story that was this because
and we don't talk about it anymore, but I would like to go and do some more research on it because that sounds very interesting. Very strange court case.
But, you know, it's like one of those things that this show is bringing out about this. There were so many odd little nooks and crannies inside this. There were so many little things inside this story that were wild stories in and of themselves that you're like, oh my God, is it the story couldn't get any weirder? Now this. And now this. And now this.
Like
and now
Faye
this
Faye
Resnick's book. That was, I was living for that. Connie Britton is just...
Well, I read somewhere that that's it. That's all that we get of Faye.
Is it really?
Which is upsetting.
That is upsetting because
she's great.
Isn't she going to be on the stand?
I don't know, but that's...
I can't remember if she was one of the witnesses in the case.
I don't think that they ended up using her.
I think it was just pre-trial conjecture about the Colombian necktie drug connection of the murders.
Right, but I think
although they mention that that's part of the story because we also hear from Ronald Goldman's father in what was a really powerful scene.
I mean, that poor guy. I remember
looks
just
like him.
But I remember that they didn't end up using Faye Resnick because they called her an unreliable witness because of all of her drug use. Well, yeah, it was fairly obvious. And then plus, I think once she released that book, it was kind of no one wanted to touch her.
I love the whole section of all of them, like we're going to read the book, we're going to figure it out, and then he's like, there's nothing in this book. Trial's going forward. Like, there's no problem here. This isn't going to affect anybody.
I found out what the hell a Brentwood hello was.
Oh my God, what a bitch. And you saw like a little bit of like...
Well, I just love the way that she talked about her, because clearly she's
some jealousy there.
That, but I also just don't think that she is self-aware enough at all. She is so self-absorbed. She has no idea how any of this is sounding. Of course she wants to throw a few jabs in, but I think ultimately it was naive, not so much from malice, that she was just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. She plays a boozy, pilled-up Faye Resnick very, very well.
It was
even though
so
she looks
funny.
Fucking nothing like her at all. But it was interesting. I was happy
that got worked in.
Yeah, I learned a lot of weird sex terms this week. I watched Better Call Saul, where they talked about what a squat cobbler is. So
I've never heard of that before, girl.
And
I don't want to hear what it is right now.
Exactly. This is neither the time nor the place, but...
It sounds like something that exists, but they just gave it a really graphic name.
Exactly.
Even more graphic name, too.
That's completely correct. But, so, learn Squat Cobbler and Brentwood Hello this week.
Brentwood Hello sounds a little classier.
I just want to know, is there a place that you go to, like, register your weird sex term name? Like, how did everybody know about Brentwood Hellos? Like, I feel like...
Maybe it's something that you only realize when you move into Brentwood. Like, you get a Brentwood Hello and you're told that's what it is, and that's how people in the neighborhood know what it is. That's just how it works.
Oh,
and so
now I get why everybody wants to live in Brentwood.
And it's not just the beautiful houses and the, like, you know, complete divorce from reality that
and
you
the
get
proximity
in
to the beach, and, yeah, just generally insulated from stuff.
It's rather nice.
Also, there's a wonderful bagel shop there off San Vicente.
I'm sure there is. But the racist angle of this episode, of both the episodes really.
Both episodes, well, now that Johnny Cochran's
Dream Team,
involved.
it, like, was developed with the whole Mark Furman connection to lead into them bringing Cochran onto the team. So at that point, it's Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, Dershowitz, Kardashian is still hanging around looking like a sad sack. And then Johnny Cochran is brought on as a result of Shapiro giving that press conference where he's like, "Oh, I believe that they're being, you know, like that our argument is that the system is racist," which, I mean, that's a brilliant way, because frankly they're at a perfect time to say that, because it was obvious that it kind of is in a lot of ways. You know, that's something you can't really deny. But they're using it and, like, exploiting it for the most nefarious reasons, like on the least deserving person. Like, that argument should be made in, like, the defense of somebody who was unjustly tried for a crime they didn't commit, not for something that everyone knows they committed, which made that moment when Robert Shapiro says in the next episode, 100% not guilty, when he's like, who here thinks you did it? And I'm like, everyone?
I was like, great icebreaker, where did you get that?
I'm like... That was, like,
well,
a perfect sign of how out of touch he was with everybody.
And then he later walks into a meeting with, I believe it was Shapiro, or Cochran and Kardashian, who I think Kardashian's primary objective while being a quote-unquote lawyer on this team was to basically be, as he calls him, the Juice's liaison. Because it feels like OJ runs everything by Robert first and gets, like, an opinion and kind of makes him do his dirty work a lot, even though he seems very happy to do it because they're bros or whatever. But crushing hella puss back in the heyday of the 80s, I'm sure.
I loved that opening to the episode where it's, like, a flashback to, like, OJ snorting coke off a woman's boobs in a club and dancing, and Robert Kardashian's there dancing, all this great disco music or techno, whatever garbage music it is, going on, and then, like, you know, hard cut, like,
him in a jail cell,
no sound, looking at his plate of goop.
Yeah, so when Bob comes in, he's like, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna plead guilty. We're gonna say you went over to slash her tires and then you slit her throat by accident. I'm like, what?
I was like, by the time they get to that, because they've just gone through this whole, like, brilliant, like, this is what we're going to do for our defense.
Right, it was so...
We're going to totally play this card.
It was so
it's going to be
cringe.
so good. And it was, like, the worst moment for him to come in with this terrible idea, because they've been saying all along that Robert Shapiro is the king of the deals, basically.
He's the settler.
He just comes up
he settles.
To settle a deal, and he doesn't actually go and do any trial work at all. And they're drawing a division here between...
I genuinely don't feel like he knows how, so he should be happy. He should be happy, because I don't get the genuine sense that he knows how to go through an entire trial. If he doesn't have an immense team full of brilliant lawyers. But that moment where he comes in and says, like, you're guilty. It not only was cringeworthy because of the timing, but also because you genuinely feel that Shapiro thinks that he's guilty and he just wants to fucking be done with this. He just wants to be able to dine out on this. This is the only reason why he signed on.
And it's interesting
because...
It's not
in the pursuit of truth and justice at all. It's in pursuit of free dinners and more money.
And there was that moment because he's going on vacation to, like, Hawaii or whatever, and his wife is like, I'm really sick of this because all my friends are hearing that 911 tape and they don't talk to me because I'm married to you and your client did this terrible, horrible thing, and everyone knows he did it, and I can't stand this anymore. We need to get away from this, and it's kind of, like, very brilliantly setting up the Robert Shapiro's not really gonna
and also what pushed him to go settle, like, because he delivers... Doesn't he deliver that news? Oh, no. It's right before he leaves for the trip, because when he... Because he gets a talking down to while he's wearing a fucking Hawaiian shirt. It drove me insane. But it's interesting, while we're on this point, that the Dream Team's defense all was centered around race, whereas Marcia Clark's theory was that it's a domestic violence case. Yeah. And I think that the way that she came at it eventually did not do her any favors. And also the jury selection stuff was hard to sit through. I felt bad for her a lot.
It was really
also because
painful.
Mainly because I felt like I was actually watching it happen to Marcia Clark, and I
Because
just remember
you
how
always
everybody came for her.
That was the thing. It's like I remember from that moment, I'm like, I kept imagining when that trial was actually happening, I was like, I don't really know anything about her, but I'm getting the sense that, like, I don't know, I just felt like she was clearly like this magnet for like everybody's, like, all the shit that people were pouring out in response to this case was all like kind of directed at her, and she had to bear the brunt of all of it. And you could tell that she had, not because she was bitchy in the trial, but you could just tell that she was under a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of weight on her shoulders, not just from trying to get this verdict, but it was like from everywhere, from the culture, from the people around her, from the impressions of people around her, and having to stand there and listen, like, you know, the actress playing Marcia Clark, Sarah Paulson, is like playing it so well. She's like not overdoing it. It's like she's getting the character just right, because you get the sense that like she has this sort of stoic nature where she's not going to pretend that she's not feeling something, but she's not going to just like gush all of it out. And it's just like tiny, subtle movements in her face will really tell the story. And all you had to do was give us her face to know exactly what was going on in her head, really, which was like, oh my God, like I commit my life to finding justice for these people, for people who are victims of violence, and this is what people think of me, and I have to stand here and listen to it. And then to be told to smile more. And it's like, I'm trying a fucking domestic violence double homicide, but with a famous person that nobody wants to believe is guilty. And
hot take. Stop telling women to fucking smile. They don't have to. It's not our fucking job to smile.
It was so painful. I felt like...
But it was just...
We got such a picture of what she was going through in this
Well, yeah, I just keep
trial.
flashing on that moment from the trailer where she's like, I'm not a public person. It's like her breaking down in tears. I'm like, I know, honey. It's okay.
It was so sad because it's like... And then that's when they really first discovered, like, the intense racial divide in the case in terms of how people are seeing it, where they asked the sample of half black, half white people, and they say, who thinks he's innocent? And all the black people raise their hand. And they say, who thinks he's guilty? And all the white people raise their hand. They're like, I had no idea it was this bad. But Marcia Clark still retains hope, despite all of these things that she's seen and heard from these people. She still retains hope that, like, any person, no matter their race, their ethnicity, or their gender, will be able to look at the facts in this case and see it for what it is, which is really what everybody who was watching expected to happen. It was just the spectacle of it. The OJ defense team made it like a spectacle, like the Dream Team, like the basketball team that won gold at the Olympics.
Dude, none of you are Larry Bird. Back up.
Like, it was like that kind of like star power that they gave themselves, and they were such masters at manipulating the media, all of them, and knowing what to say and how to present themselves.
I mean, now we have trial by Twitter, but back then you definitely had trial by media, and that's exactly, and they ran a tight game, and quite frankly outpaced the DA office that didn't have the time or the resources to do that kind of stuff. Nor did they have the pull.
Like, they even say, like, it's interesting to hear them discussing the strategy in the show where they're like, we're going to question everything, no matter what they do, what they say, whatever they ask, even if it's the most reasonable thing, we're going to question it.
Oh, and then
they start with the fucking hair.
It was insane. I guess, like, it wasn't exactly what that negotiation, I guess that fact check from Vanity Fair was like. It wasn't, no pun intended, but they were splitting hairs there. But regardless, it was like that, where he was just argued with her. He just, I mean, if he was Ronda Rousey and she was whoever Ronda Rousey usually beats the shit out of. Like, it was sad. You just saw her get slammed, and then to watch her have to just swallow it and just be like, all right, and like negotiate, and then still not get anywhere. And I felt like that's probably how the trial really, that was just, and it was just a very early warning sign, but that's exactly how it ends up going.
Exactly. Like, she couldn't believe that. It's like, I'm sorry, it's like so plain that, like, this is normal and this is what should happen. And it's like, things that should happen were not happening. That was their strategy all along, and it's interesting to hear.
And it's working.
And it worked brilliant. It's a brilliant strategy, and I wonder if that'll affect in some way, because there's like this crazy thing about, you know, like filmed entertainment and a courtroom. It's sort of, there's always like this natural combination of the two. The idea that, like, when you film something, it's like a record of something. You know, it's something that's irrefutable. What you're seeing is like what actually happened, like in a photograph. Like, that was there. You can't deny that. There's some sort of evidentiary, like, basis in terms of how we look at pictures and things that are being filmed. And so courtrooms are like really popular, and ever since the beginning of movies, they seem to always have a courtroom because there's the same sort of like hemming and hawing over what's real and what's not real, and it's all about a perception and a performance, and it's like it naturally ties.
I mean,
together.
this is like To Kill a Mockingbird level of interesting courtroom.
Yeah, it's
drama.
like you're really
And
getting
they're
that
about
level
to
of
give-
performance in it.
I mean, they're about to give opening statements, which should be. I mean,
Oh.
Courtney B. Vance is on a fucking roll. He's gonna
Because
nail it.
the
It's gonna be
opening
so
speech
good.
that he had with OJ, or the pump up speech that we were talking about earlier, was so good because it made, like I said earlier, it makes you hate him and love him at the same time because it's so impressive. Like he knows how to play anybody. He knows exactly how to talk to anybody and get on, like whatever level they're on. He knows how to get on that level. And it's like, who knows if that story, like if us, just pretending that like Johnny Cochran really said that exact speech to OJ. Like I don't know. Doubt that ever really happened exactly that way, but it was
you
a
had
perfect
to, you had
way
to guess
define
that
his character.
Johnny Cochran definitely had to give him
speeches like that
exactly
in some way with
Was it
him.
that exact same place? Was it at the, no? It probably was not exactly like that.
But something to that effect, I believe, happened, and he made it. It was just so perfect because it's like you could do this anywhere, no matter what setting you're in, you can do this. But at the same time, like you are putting all these brilliant skills and natural gifts in the service of helping someone that is very obviously guilty of murder and is so deluded and drug-addled and fucked up in the head. Like, you're putting this person... You want to put this person back out on the street. This, of all people, you're going to put all of your might, all of your career into this...
I think one thing about Johnny Cochran that became clear in this episode was that got confirmed in the trailer, which is he doesn't give a fuck if he's guilty or not. He just wants to win. That's it.
He wants to compete,
and
he wants
that
to
reminds
perform.
me is that like the first episode where before Johnny's even a thought in anybody's head to join the dream team.
Yeah.
He is about to like go on TV or whatever. He's getting his makeup done, and I think either his wife or some other person's like, oh, why won't you join the legal team? He's like, this is a loser. I don't deal with that. So that's his mindset. It's not about guilty, not guilty. It's win or lose, and he's a sore loser, and he knows that about himself. He's not about to fucking lose. He's not going home empty-handed.
Even though he told a story about OJ losing and had turned it into a moment of winning, which is basically what he's going to do with this.
That is a metaphor for his entire defense.
It's basically like, really, you lost because you fucking did it, but
what I thought was interesting was that
we will rise victorious.
Yeah, I mean, even OJ's like, but we lost that game. He's like, yeah, but that's not the point.
Yeah, he's like, I forget about that. That's not the important part.
Yeah, don't look over here, look over here.
And then we think that that's like going to be like the most impressive speech we see in the episode until Ronald Goldman's father visits Marcia Clark.
Now you can just totally feel like if this is the kind of shit you're dealing with the whole time, like yeah, of course it's gonna.
It felt like a dagger in the heart when they told her to smile after seeing all of that. I'm like, I cannot imagine living under that.
Well, I guess that's why a recent study showed that lawyers are most likely to be alcoholics. So
well, she does have 2 bottles in her drawer.
Yeah,
like when she invites the one black lawyer in the DA's office to have a drink with her.
And not the good stuff, you guys. Not the good stuff.
And he's like, she's like, well, can I buy you a drink? She busts out a bottle. He's like, well, I only drink tequila. Second bottle.
I bet if you asked if there was gin in there, they probably would.
There
be.
probably was. She could make you a mean Manhattan, I bet, from that desk. Yeah. She probably got a
No
drawer
ice.
full of mixers and some little like olives on ice and like maybe little onions for Gibsons.
I don't know. I feel like she's a no frills type of gal. She just.
It seemed like it, but it was like such a moment where like. And then she's the one who's like, okay, fine, we want to, play this game, then let's have a black lawyer in our team. We have one in our office who actually looked at the evidence and thinks he's guilty because it's obvious.
Right, because they decided not to pursue the AC Cowlings angle.
Yeah, it's, oh my god, so many twists and turns in this freaking... every episode's like so much happens. You're like, oh my god.
But to me, that clarifies a lot because I was always surprised that he never AC. Did I say AJ? I don't know what I said.
I think you said AC.
Okay, it was always confounding to me that AC faced no repercussions whatsoever for
essentially
driving the getaway car.
Yeah.
Just driving it around, and nothing happened to him at all.
I'm like, isn't that
charges,
technically
no
aiding and abetting? Maybe he got off because he was defending, like, oh, he was threatening to kill himself, and I didn't want him to die, so this is the only way to keep him from...
Right, that he was basically held hostage.
So, like, he did have a reasonable doubt escape hatch out of charges. So even if they had brought it to trial, I feel like that could have been something that they could have argued and probably won on. So they're like, okay,
yeah, I think you could easily prove that he's OJ's stalker, but a friend.
Oh, God. Creepo. He had the same freaking car.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't dress more like OJ. That creeped me out very much.
That's something I, for some reason, had not retained from my obsession with the original trial.
Uh-uh.
I did not retain that at all. I just remember seeing the sad faces of the families of those who passed. Like Nicole Brown's sisters, who looked like so much like her, but with dark hair.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like, it was really, that made even the experience of, again, like the sort of film and court, like tie-in, you know, between the way we watch a courtroom trial and the way we watch a movie, looking for the evidence, looking for the most convincing argument, looking for the most compelling story arc that's going to capture our attention. And those faces were like a mirror looking back right at us of like the victim of this crime, that one of the victims of this crime. And the dad was sort of like the mirror for Ronald Goldman for us too. And we finally get that moment. So like, even though we're super impressed by Courtney B. Vance's speech and that great moment that starts the episode, it really leads into that speech by Ronald Goldman, where it's sort of like the effect of Marcia Clark's interview. She's like, let's remember that there were two victims here who died horrible deaths, that, you know, like these two victims really needed justice through the system and the system failed them. Like, let's remember that this story involves these two victims. And that moment, like, just if it doesn't break your heart, I don't know what's wrong with you. Because it was, like, the most emotional thing I think we've seen in the whole season outside of, like, the recreation of, like, the crime scene.
I mean...
And hearing the 911 tapes.
Whoever's playing... I genuinely even thought for a second the guy looked so much like him. I thought it was Ronald Goldman. I was like, is he playing himself right now?
Is that Ronald Goldman's dad?
Yeah. I don't know.
Is that really him? And it was, because it was such an impassioned performance. He was so completely in it.
Yeah.
Like, that you felt like a shit for, like, even being attracted to, like, the weird media circus aspect of the trial. Like, it really brought everyone back down to earth. And Marcia Clark, who wasn't really needing that revisit to earth, just, like, sort of...
No,
it broke her heart, too, but it strengthened her resolve a little bit more.
That, but I think you can also feel the pressure visibly on her shoulders. I think for everybody else, it was a nice break.
Like, oh my God, I'm really finding...
Sarah Paulson is just... everybody's just killing it. It's insane. It's
like,
so good. I don't know how...
Because every bit of energy she has to, like, hold it in. To keep it together for it. Because she realizes that if she breaks down, this is the last thing that's going to help in that moment. She, like... You can feel the stress of, like, really needing to hold it in. She's always in a position where she has to hold it in. And
also, as a woman, you already are... You show up at a disadvantage.
Well, that's part of the thing,
because
too.
That was so hard to watch her get dressed down by
what do you think
Johnny
of Marcia
Cochran.
Clark? Oh, well, she's a bitch.
Well, but I think the hardest thing for me was to watch her get beat down by Johnny Cochran in the court, like, with literally splitting hairs. Like, you have to show up and be a strong, confident person because they're already assuming you're going to break down and cry. And the fact that she has to falter a little bit and even meet halfway and still not get anything, like, that puts a huge chink in your armor. Like, it makes you look bad in front of everybody. And I feel like that probably was a little bit more detrimental than some fucking Midwestern housewife bitch that called her a bitch.
Well, it was not even... Well, no, I still think that that's a hard thing for her to hear from anybody.
I'm not saying that that's not hard, but she's not going to be on the jury.
But that was more of a wake-up call. It was a bigger wake-up call for her because she always believed that she could speak to a jury.
Right.
That was her
particularly
strength.
women.
And particularly women, and to have the
divorced
first
women,
comment...
I think, was her thing.
Yeah, the first comment that she be that she's a bitch. And she's like, I spent my life advocating for people like you. And her convinced, she's like, I still get letters from the black women that I have helped, and I am looking, this is a domestic violence case. There was a woman here who was beaten to death, stabbed, slaughtered, like in that moment in Ronald Goldman's dad's speech where he was like, when he mentions every place he was stabbed and that he was stabbed even after he was dead.
Which I didn't know.
I was just like, it's like he lays out every single fact about the case, that if you were the parent or a family member of this person, every one of those things, it's like every line itself is like a jab with a knife into like the heart of the audience, and he's intending those words to act like that. Like every line, every single fact is a dagger in my heart, and I want it to be a dagger in yours, so you remember what the fuck was lost here. Like, he was not a douchebag. I don't like the way he's being treated in the media. He's an afterthought, and he's being treated like a joke of an afterthought.
I definitely think that he was treated a lot like an afterthought and was very unfortunate.
And it was just like, wow, like this show is just, it's getting every single little thing and not feeling like it's just cramming in things, like they're putting blocks into a pattern that they have to fulfill, or just, it's like they feel like they're really
they're
trying
not
to
just
tell
like,
the story from all angles.
It's
and
not a
making
documentary by any stretch of the imagination, but they, in terms of keeping it factual and real and also providing a human interest.
That's the thing that's so impressive, is that it's not, nothing is shoehorned
Nothing feels
into the
false,
show.
though, either.
It feels sincere and organic in a way. Like, I don't ever feel the effect of being led.
I mean, this is definitely one of the better Ryan Murphy joints that has happened in a long time. In terms of, like, nose to tail, thoughtfulness, like, set direction, acting, all of it has just been really, really good. I've enjoyed it. And if you're not watching it, I feel sorry for you.
I don't know why you're not. I've talked to my coworkers at the office into watching this.
It is the...
It is
one of the best
show to be watching, I really think, right now. It really is. What's weird is that I was reading some interviews where they were talking about how the second season they want to be about Hurricane Katrina.
Oh.
And, like, I mean, I agree completely, like, the idea that, like, that was a really huge American crime and it's worthy of us devoting this many episodes and trying to break down that story and tell it and not popularize, but to, like, make apparent to people just the enormity of the horror of that entire situation. I'm not against there being another film or show in some way about that, because I think there should be more. I don't see how anyone's going to top what Spike Lee did with When the Levees Broke. I think that 4-hour HBO documentary, like, I was not bored for a single minute of it. It was perfectly put together. It was a brilliant film and really, I think, gave you, like, the gravity, the full, real, horrible story of that already. I don't think it's not, like I said, I don't think it's something that they shouldn't tell again. But I was hoping for the second season of the show to be more along the lines of, like, famous American trial kind of stories. I mean, they don't want it to all be trials.
Like I said last time we checked in, my secret wish is that they do the Menendez brothers case.
That would be a good one. It would be the same era, though. I don't think they're
I know they would want to. Yeah,
they'd have to circle back to it, like, in a later season.
I just want to put that little nug out there. Just
I feel like
use it whenever. It doesn't need to be next season. I just want you
like
to
Ted Bundy.
Ooh, that might be good. I'm trying to think of any other.
That would be a perfect one, because it would fulfill that Alfred Hitchcock theory of the villain, which is that the villain has to be handsome and attractive and charming, because how else are they going to lure in victims?
This is true.
So that's why the victims are usually suave in his movies, or in some way they're alluring in some way. And I felt like with the Ted Bundy story, it would be built into the story because he was a handsome guy. That's how he lured in victims. He also did things like, pretending to have, like, an injury, which I think that they reference in, like, Silence of the Lambs. It's like when Buffalo Bill does that to get the senator's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's a perfect setup for them to, like, have a big casting call. I feel like it's easy media for the show. Like, a lot of free publicity would be had from that as well. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see what they actually do when they get around to it, because I don't think that I read anything where they were actually writing that.
Yeah, I don't.
As the second season, just said that was their idea.
There hasn't been an official second season yet, but I bet there will be.
I think it's already been greenlit.
Really?
I think they already have a second season greenlit for this show, because it's clearly, like, be stupid not to.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I'm just saying I haven't seen an official announcement is all.
I think there has been, but we'll double check for next week when we see the next episode, because for sure we're going to keep up with this show.
Yes. Next week.
Oh my goodness.
Any final parting thoughts before we wrap this up and do a list of plugs?
A list of plugs.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of those in San Francisco.
Yes, you can. Start with Hot Cookies Kitchen.
Hot Cookies Kitchen, Mr. S. Leather.
All right.
Wicked Grounds Coffee Shop, probably.
That place is closed, dude.
No, it's not.
I walked by and it was gone.
It's totally there.
Oh, good.
It's like one of the most popular spots in the city.
I don't know about that part, but...
It is. Like, it's one that's, like, people know of. When you look up San Francisco, it's one of those places that they always mention because it's so unique. There's not really a lot of places like it in the country.
Okay, this doesn't have anything to do with their podcast, so...
It's horror, darling.
It's not horrifying.
It's charming. But nonetheless, plugs, because there's not really anything... I think we covered...
You don't have any last, well...
Parting thoughts on how brilliant...
On either X-Files or...
I am done with X-Files.
Forever.
I don't think it's coming back. I felt like that ending... The only thing that I felt like could come out of the ending was... It was either a setup for another 6 episodes that they're just not telling us about.
Right.
They're going to spring on us in like a year. Like, guess what?
So would you watch that?
If it was actually going to continue that story and tell the rest of it, then yes.
If not,
then I
slightly
will
less interested.
watch it on Hulu later.
Okay, I see what you mean. So not first run.
No, I wouldn't get into like all the hype. I would let it all die down and then watch it.
Okay, got it. If it wasn't a continuation.
If it wasn't a continuation.
Okay.
Then that's kind of my ruling on that. As far as American Crime Story, I cannot get enough.
Yeah, no, that's...
Wait,
I wish that they put it on Netflix just so I could binge watch it.
Oh, my God. Well, if you pay for the channel, you can get it on the streaming services. You can just get the FX app.
What? No, I meant like just so I could watch the entire season. I already...
Oh, all at once now. I want to see it all.
No, I meant binge watch all of it.
I'm a horribly impatient person. I need this in my life.
That's all I want to do. I want to Netflix style watch it. That's what I want.
And the next episode is called The Race Card.
Well, it's opening statements. We're going to be in trial. Should be all good.
It's the best part. It's like the opening act, basically, of the actual trial.
Of the trial, yeah.
For reals, literals.
And we'll look into any season 2 rumors.
Hopefully something more than the Hurricane Katrina story. Actually, I still would be interested to see what they do.
What they would do. Yeah, same. I'd be very curious.
Because there's so much material there.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what they focus on.
It'd be hard. They'd have to pick a central character kind of to link it all. That would be the hard part.
You mean you could pick a part?
Or like a sort of panel of characters that each represent like a different side of how they were affected by it.
I feel like that might be the best way, but might not be what they would do.
I hope they picked that woman from When the Levees Broke. Like, she's one of the interview subjects. I wish I could remember her name, but she was like, throughout the whole special, Spike Lee talks to her a lot, and she's actually like the best interview subject in the whole movie. She was a really powerful presence, and I hope that, like, if they're going to do it, they need to like talk to her.
I feel like they've done really right by all people affected in this trial.
In this
with
show.
OJ. Yeah, real life people. I feel like they are cognizant.
They're going to do it again.
And whatever task the Kardashians have with them being used in it, I would say whatever. So.
Oh yeah,
there
wasn't a lot of that in this episode. They kind of, except for that one moment with Robert Kardashian, where he starts to be like, when they're talking about the jury selection or like the results, and they're like, all the black women thought OJ was charming and they liked him, and like he scored like a 7 or an 8 or something out of 10, and like the scale, and Marsha Clark scored a 3 or a 4.
Right.
Oh no, Nicole Brown scored like a 4. And it was because they all thought she was a gold digger. And then, like, Robert Kardashian was like, no, she wasn't like that at all.
It was so sad. He was like, she's not. I knew her. Like,
he was like, the only one who still has a heart in that room.
Not a single person, though, is listening to him either.
They're completely ignoring him. He was like, no, we can't feel emotion about this because then we'd realize what shitty human beings we are. So we're not even going to acknowledge this, like, moment of humanity that you're feeling in this moment. So just, we're going to ignore it.
It was like watching a small child be lost in a mall. It was so sad.
It was really sad. Totally, that's a really good description of it, because that's totally what it was. He was like a sad little boy who just saw reality for the first time. And like the reality of a world that does not give a shit about the real victims. And it was a really sad, a tiny little moment.
He wasn't a trial lawyer when he was a practicing lawyer,
I don't think he was.
So I don't think that he ever had to deal with this kind of crap. Ever. And then whatever crap he did have to deal with, clearly didn't think it was worth it to be a lawyer because he stopped.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. He's
getting harder for him to like defend OJ, I feel. But I can't remember at this point how that relationship worked out in the end. I'm sure not so great because Robert Kardashian passed away. Didn't he pass away?
Yeah, no, he did.
I'm like, you looked at me for a second like,
because I was waiting to see where you were going with this.
And I was like, wait, what? No. Like, he did pass away. He totally
did. It was a go on, like, okay, and
I am just curious. I don't know. I forgot where I was going with it. You totally threw me
off. How their friendship ended. I
was gonna say we don't have any current comments from him because he's passed away on how that friendship really dissolved.
I don't know,
because we know it had to have.
Right, because OJ went on the run after he lost that civil suit. So.
Oh, and back in prison anyways.
Right. Very curious. Much curiosity.
So I'd love to see a little bit about that. Is there going to be a Kardashian moment where he finally breaks?
End of the bromance.
Yeah, right? Like, are we going to get that as part of this story, too? Like, that's an interesting little angle I think I'd like to see in there. But yeah, it's like every episode is like 5 out of 5 stars for me.
Oh my God, I love it.
I
wish I had more stars to give.
I wish I had more accolades to heap on the show because it's so good.
Yeah, but I mean, we've already said it all, and whatever we haven't said, somebody else has said it. Because I feel like there's not a single person that I know that watches it that's like, ugh.
No, I haven't met anybody because it's sensationalist and humane. So you don't feel like an asshole,
It
but
really
you can
does
really
walk that
glory
line
in
so well.
the entertainment value of it. It's
So impressed.
perfect.
So impressed.
I can't recommend it enough.
Well, on that note,
Plenty of gambitchery to go around, but
Yes.
we got to call it a rest just for this one moment because we're going to be back very shortly with some comments on The Witch and which movies in horror, which characters in horror. It's going to be fun, and I think you should come back for it. And until then, of course, you can find this podcast on iTunes. It's free. You can subscribe to it. You can find it on the Gambit Digital YouTube page. You can find us shilling it on Twitter at Samiraculous. At Samiraculous is me on Twitter. And who are you, Miss Ghoul Friend?
you can find me at Marg She Wrote, and you can always find this podcast at the Gambit Digital Twitter and on the Gambit Digital YouTube page. I think you said that, but whatever. I was on a Gambit Digital run.
If you say it 3 times in a row, people will never forget it. Gambit Digital, Gambit Digital, Gambit Digital, Virgin America.
Well,
But I
yes.
suppose on that note, we will bid you good evening with another to come.